that's coming to the property, when they hear the word PUD, they walk away.
Tell my dad about farmstead and utilities and.
So, one of the requests,
Dad.
of course, you'll know this like the back of your hand. Last Tuesday, we passed at the city that a developer is allowed to phase out a development. However, it has to be phased on the preliminary plat drawing that's approved.
Okay, which
And
theirs wasn't,
I'm sorry?
which Farmstead wasn't, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
But they come back at the 11th hour when they hit rock and said, oh, we're gonna bust this up phase 1, phase 2. So what it does is, if the phases aren't on the preliminary plat, when it's approved by planning commission, the developer can't come back and change any phase.
Yeah.
Has to be built as a preliminary plat state.
Or they can get a final plat. Absolutely, it makes sense.
Tell them about the utility.
They've requested to go in July.
He knows.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he knows.
I was kinda hoping they all.
But he knows that it ultimately factors more with public utilities than that. They probably don't care.
Yeah.
But it's really just if a
I'm
contractor
fine,
hurts
how are
them,
you?
it saves them from jumping ship.
My house.
What happened with?
That's it.
I had it muted. Did you hear me tell you it was muted?
Camera
was off.
Mom had to take long to sleep all day.
So I think for planning, it's not a hiccup.
Red lights
But
are
they
on.
took him
Just for the
to-
day.
Alright, so I muted the,
and,
Tom
she
told
had
me to
her
mute the
thing
mics
spinning between Tom's
leave the camera on.
Yeah.
I was thinking if my was muted, I'd see a little red light on the bottom of the thing.
How do you know if you muted or not?
No, I didn't.
I thought the red light was on if it's recording.
Nope,
Exactly.
axe opposite, yeah.
Leave it to you to know.
You dang right, we pay close attention to that.
But anyways, I don't think it's the impact of the planning. I think it's the true impact of public utilities and for people that's just trying to escape out of development.
No, just, so somebody's with her 24/7, yeah. See, my mother, my sister-in-law kinda manages my mother.
Well, see, those are pre-existing,
She will
already come in,
She
just
needs to
starting
lay
now.
down.
Nothing. The way the city's doing it is nothing on the books can be changed after Tuesday.
I just told her, tell her that if she doesn't wanna do that, she can go to home somewhere.
But see, from the utility
They have a
standpoint,
lady that comes in 2 days
it's
a
not
week.
enforceable unless
She
you can't
picks her up
have
from her
somebody.
house in Johnson.
How do they make it
Takes her to Johnson.
We'll do it right here tonight.
Takes her back to Mountain.
Utility
So
side,
she's
like-
That's all I know. Knowing that
She,
they can't
that's
change
not
favor.
good for somebody that's got that. It needs some structure.
Yeah, so what time?
That helps.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not like she usually does.
But it is recorded.
How old is she?
Mama said she didn't know.
Well,
why.
no,
She
no,
was going
no,
to-
She's
in the shower.
She's not 3, you know.
His house, good, down here.
It's rezoned. I know Ms. Leo has good ideas, good plans, but that don't mean it's gonna happen. When we rezone it to what they're wanting, they can do what's allowed to be. And that was back in the days of PUD.
Fits the
I'm just
application
trying
Well,
to,
then
I
just a
think
few
it's
in the
minutes.
area
better to find
And
Now, it depends on what the new zone here calls for, whether they would need to go R1, R2, R3, I can't remember.
There's no.
fire departments come now, and they.
So the question is,
go to the-
which one would it need to be on the
county
consent
fires
to
instead
restrict
of
the
the
building?
rescue squad. And-
Well,
But to me, it's like the property up here at, Ruby. Why was that ever zoned municipal or industrial? It should have already.
Well, Mr. Bright,
exactly. Right before you was old enough to ride bicycles, there's gonna be a big industrial complex down there with rail hookup, and it was gonna have, ports and docks and
I
all
would
this.
for every one of those parcels to come and ask for all.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question in my mind. In fact, 3 of them are already are. 3 of them,
There's several still in.
yeah, 3 of them I think's industrial. 4 of them, 3 and 4.
There's 4 lots, that's all that's left, that's the, one. Everything else around it's already R.
Okay. I knew some of them were. That's some beautiful place down there, buddy.
Where's that?
It's what's called Browder Farm, later the Davis Farm. It's down to this giant peninsula completely surrounded by the Tennessee River. It's gorgeous down there. I've not been there in 30, 40 years, I guess.
Can't get my turns out. 5% or.
It's on the right side, dropping you down is on the right, locking the back's on the left, the other right side, the other right.
What does it kind of go over 5%?
They do it different in Philadelphia, don't
When
they?
you-
They do. Which, how do I turn that? What do I do?
Pull that little lever, pull it up. There you go.
Form it.
I'm too top.
You-
5% of
There, so they come and pick her up.
Well, I don't play. They're having a bigger shot.
Those are yours.
Like,
I'll give you papers in case you want them.
It's the same here and there both.
I'll stay right here so I can answer questions.
Yeah.
Since you're a part of it, you just do that.
You are
Think
too.
like
I'm not.
you need to get out there so we can throw things at you.
I'm good. Hopefully you can't throw this far.
So, real quick, one thing that I'd like to address, first of all, on the top sheet with all this yellow highlighting, the top paragraph comes out of our subdivision regulations for preliminary plats. I've highlighted that because it's basically the statement says a preliminary plat is good for 1 year unless you come back and file for an extension through the planning commission. There's been some questions come up as far as phasing of subdivisions. So we've seen subdivision plats that come in and it's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Usually work's only done in the phase that they intend on completing, getting final plat. The second paragraph is under final plat section of your subregs. And so what happens is when there's some questions, so somebody comes in, they've got a large subdivision, we'll say, they come in, they start working throughout, but then they decide, well, we really need to get started. Let's get final plat on this segment. So if you read this, it says final plat shall conform substantially to the preliminary sketch platted as approved, and if desired by the subdivider, it may constitute only that portion of the approved preliminary sketch plat which he proposed to record and develop at the time, provided however such portions conform to the overall requirements. So, the thought is this, in some opinion, is if we're going to phase subdivisions, we should have development submit plats with phasing on it. Whether they show it as phase 1 future development or phase 1, 2, or 3. But that way, when we review a preliminary plat, we're reviewing that phase and they'll be required to complete that phase in order to get a final plat approval. And I believe we need to remove this language right here to make that clear. To get a final plat, you need to have everything that you submitted on your preliminary plat done. So if they want to show a 5-phase subdivision and submit a preliminary plat and start this phase and come back 2 months later and start phase 2, that's fine. But we're only going to final out the phases that they have submitted and have in and complete to that point. Just some thoughts and feedback on that. I think Lenore City's already kindly tried to address this to do with some subdivisions they have out there.
We passed it last Tuesday.
And
So when the city reviewed it and passed it, we're not restricting the developers from doing anything that they don't normally do now. We're just saying, if you want to phase it, it has to be on the preliminary plat drawing that's approved by the planning commission. Because we have had some issues with public utilities, with roads, et cetera, about them coming in at the 11th hour, not being done and wanting to change the lot lines for a different phase. And it kind of creates a little bit of a mess. So with all that, it actually just streamlines it. They are still allowed to do it, they just have to tell us up front.
They gotta know up front what they're gonna do.
But this is not retroactive for Farmstead, right?
Not for Farmstead, but what it would do is it would eliminate, my opinion, for the county. The city has said any drawing on the books cannot be changed past last Tuesday night's point. So if Farmstead wanted to come back and bust it up into phase 3 and 4, it would eliminate them from doing that. They would have to build Farmstead out like it's platted. If we pass it tonight, they'd have to build it phase 1 and phase 2.
With this whole well holla, with this
All
new standard.
drawing. Now, by the city, we're gonna make it retroactive, that any drawing that's been approved as a preliminary plat, it's approved as such. Can't be changed. But now, Quail Hollow has not been busted up phases to my knowledge, but Farmstead has, phase 1 and 2. But it would eliminate them from creating additional 2A, 2B, stuff of that nature. Because we are seeing that happen.
How do you make sure they come back and finish? I know they say they're going to, you know, but it's a day.
Farmstead is one of the questions, you know, when a contractor or developer hits rock, a lot of times they walk away from the job. So this right here, just using Farmstead for an example, Farmstead was preliminary plat approved all in one phase. So this would have eliminated them from even getting final plat unless they had done the entire development. So this right here is just an example of something like that. It would have stopped that being, you know, from happening.
I don't know of any subdivisions right off going on in the county that this will affect. I think it'll affect us more for the future. And we do have subdivisions that's phased through, you know, Stone Harbor, Stone Crossing, those were all phased subdivisions where they worked on what they wanted.
Some engineers go ahead and phase it out, knowing they want to do it sections, get building permits, start building houses. So many want to just get the quick approval and move forward.
But in discussion, you know, it may not stop some cut and fill because you're borrowing, you might need to borrow soil from a portion of the development to take it to another, but it would stop you from doing road improvements, infrastructure. If your phase one plat's gonna show detention for phase one over into phase two, then they're gonna have that all in and
Have
completed.
to
as
have
part of that first
utilities
phase.
connected, and have to have their sewer and.
Yeah, at least
connected.
everything for phase one will have to be done, you won't be.
Would have to be totally complete before they get the first building permit.
Yeah, and I think that accomplished that by removing it, that one segment, because I really think that makes it look like you can phase it. And if you all are good with the removal of that, we'll.
Are you gonna remove just the yellow part?
The top yellow is just where I highlighted what come out, but out of this final plat segment, what we would try to remove is what is highlighted, where it kind of leads you to believe that even though it got a preliminary on 100 lots, I only wanted to develop 25. I think this verbiage kind of gives you, that's where it kind of come up in talking to Beth a few months ago about this.
I think too, the consideration, I don't think the issue is so impactful for the planning offices. I think who it's truly impactful for is the stormwater, the public utilities, and the roads. Because those agencies or those entities are saying, hey, here's a good separation between the phases, and then when the developer comes back and changes phases, Jenkins or Collins don't necessarily care. They close out that phase, but it makes such an impact over the infrastructure. So we're really just clean, on the city side, our first approach was to help the infrastructure entities, the county roads, the city roads, stormwater, utilities, everything else, to keep from being in a mess every plat. I don't think, y'all don't necessarily care if the phases change, do you?
The only time I've seen anything where they come in and they have phased is when we did work for the city, they had a plat that they had a preliminary on, and then they wanted to only complete a portion of it. And I actually had them go back and rephase their final plat. But what we're requesting is a little bit different. We want them phasing it on the preliminary. So we know that work is in. You know, again, if we're gonna allow a letter of credit on a road or something, we also wanna be clear where we're allowing it. It's on that phase of construction, and that's gonna be tied in also. Usually everything else is gonna be in and done. I just think it clarifies things. Don't have a problem with phasing, but let's only work in what you intend on finishing, and as far as if they get over disturbing earth or somewhere else, we do have notice of coverages that take care of that stuff, and if they're gonna cease work, then by law, for what that's worth, we're supposed to cover, establish vegetation, stuff like that, close out that permit.
The public utilities in the areas have already kind of went to it, but the problem is they can't even enforce it unless the planning commissions kind of partner up.
Set it up that way.
So the spec books have already been rewritten, the actual engineered drawings say no phasing changes, but unless the planning commissions kind of give them that backup, it's, the public utilities worry about being enforceable with it.
Do you need to make a motion to remove this, or we wait,
If
need to wait till the
you'll deal with
meeting?
it, We'll get it, we'll create a resolution, bring it through to you all to vote on, we'll put it in this official vote and send it up to county commission. See what they think about it.
But, so let's talk about Quail Hollow. If this passes tonight, and then Quail Hollow comes in tomorrow and says, hey, we want to phase, The answer would be no.
I would think, from the
Well, all
county's
the
point of
drawings
view,
are
I
already
think
submitted.
anything prior to this will be grandfathered in. Fortunately, I don't know of anything in the county currently going on, and thankfully that'll go through, Lenore City for review.
I mean, Quill Hollow goes to the city, so they've already
Yeah.
set.
Which
set
says
the
no,
camp-
no
camp
changes
phase.
from the original plan.
Okay.
You know, I think they could have just about, I mean, it's just really one of those steps, and when we take this verbiage out, it would have given them more power, in my opinion, to say, no, this is your preliminary submittal. And doesn't allow the developer to go back and point to this section that says, but this is all I have ready, and according to y'all's regs, it allows.
And in our minutes, we also stated that as far as existing drawings that had been submitted, preliminary plats of active projects, that they stood, they were held accountable to whatever the current plat had been approved. No changes were allowed after that point. So I think in a Farmstead, Quail Hollow, Stone Harbor, I'd say the safest thing is the county probably needs to practice probably the same thing. That way you can enforce it on the current shovel-ready projects already under construction.
Yeah.
TDEC approved Farmstead with none of that second phase vegetated?
I think what TDEC is doing is just stating they're working their same best management practices, and it's just an open notice of coverage, and they're just gonna continue to work that project. They did tell, I know they told Beth at the city that they were in compliance prior to the meeting where y'all approved.
It's
phase
like
one.
30 minutes before. And of course, that went to our other thing that we said, and I think y'all practiced pretty well with it. We also said and passed to where if that project was not compliant, had all the documentation saying they were compliant, they would not be placed on the agenda for the meeting. So it cuts out that at 5 o'clock for the 6 o'clock meeting, the contractor's in the room saying, oh yeah, I've done this, this, and this, but the problem is the planning office was already closed, so they're not notified. So we cut that out as well. But I don't know if y'all have much problem with that.
We're doing a little better with that. We don't quite have the amount of development right now that the cities do. We'll work on that. Now, the reason we're all here, so I laid some documents. This is just my thoughts out of my head. You better be careful reading this. We'll go along with this. This sheet here, so what these sheets are, these are the sheets that were sent down by the county commission that we'll work on. But what is in red is where I made some notes, for myself, some things to fix, some things to think about or discuss. It's just thought process, okay? So in general, so what's happened is the request has been made to look at creating new zoning districts. And in these sheets that you have, these two, Excel sheets, it moves several uses from the zoning districts and puts them in a new overlay district and or a new zoning classification, all right? So these, top sheet give you your new zoning districts. The new ones will be an A3, an R2, one that we may not have the correct word down for, special use district possibly, and then we have the overlay districts. So when think about that, so what it does, the proposal would increase lot sizes in most zoning districts. So when you read through your sheet, the A1 and A2 zoning district, it would increase those lot sizes to a minimum of a 2.5 acre lot size. It would change setback requirements for those zoning locations also, as been laid out in this form. The R zoning district, you know, goes from 20,000 to a true half acre. It's like 1,500 square feet or so. It don't sound like a whole lot, just keep in mind that sometimes square footage, I just wanna be clear on everything, as you make decisions, sometimes those square footages are the one thing that prohibits that property from being able to be divided, not just due to footage, but sometimes you have a little width, and because we have minimum lot widths, when we take that square footage and we increase it a little bit, it affects the way lots can lay out sometimes. So $1,500 feet could be that difference. The A3 would be the new 1 acre lot size. The R2 would be obviously where they would look to put duplexes, multifamily, cluster options, and again, I have some notes on this, but as I go down my sheet, we create a community facilities overlay district, the R3, R2 special uses district, and we start moving some things around. So as you think through this, what we're looking at, we're gonna say, what does the increase in lot size cost? Good idea, bad idea, either way. The other main thing in looking at it is we have this overlay district, and what this overlay district, if you look on this sheet too, I've got these on the screen, I highlighted through the zoning, and there's like 50 pages here, it's the reason I didn't make copies. But if you look through the highlighted section of that, this is all the things, if you'll scroll down that field, all these things I've highlighted come out of these zoning districts. They either go away and or they go to a special use district or overlay. So when we
Is
think
that
of,
what you're referring to as the community facilities
Yes.
overlay?
yes, and so when you look through that, that's where, you know, the recommendation is airports, cemeteries, churches, other places of worship, educational, government facilities, you know, marinas, private recreation, schools. So when you look through that, again, this is me just thinking out loud. So currently, the BZA hears under a special exception, or where a lot of these things are coming out of. It's our special exception classification, no matter what the zoning district is. So what this would do is if you create this special overlay district, the BZA no longer hears these causes. That goes as like we do cell towers. It goes as an overlay, the planning commission hears it first, and finally to county commission. That will be the process. The only other thing other thought I had on that is, my opinion is the county has probably changed a lot from the creation of this book. When we look in the A1 and A2 where we're doing doctor's offices and things of that nature, I don't know that we really have the rural nature of the county anymore. So I'm not so sure that some of these things we have listed in an overlay district might be better not to be put in an overlay district, but in a correct zoning district. And even where we have our C1, for instance, which is a rural commercial district, if we could get in the far reaches of the county, which probably right now, I hate to say it, it's probably out Blue Springs Road somewhere, right? There's some C zoning out there.
Yeah.
That might be the only place that you might see more use of a C zone. So if we needed a doctor's office or some other type of facility like that, it might be better suited that it be allowed in that C1, which I believe it is already, and just allow that as a special exception. But rather than having a lot of things being put in overlays, it might be better just to say, let's take them out of our A1s and our A2s. We don't need them there. Take them out of our R1s, let's put them in our proper zonings and just do it the right way. Now, this is where you can, it's an allowable use, and or if it still needs to be a special exception, it can be done as such.
For the community facilities overlay, Bob Bowman said overlays could not be denied based on public opposition.
Correct.
So that technically would need to be a community facility zoning.
Say that again, Adam.
So one thing we've learned is if someone comes in here for a rezone, if the public opposes it, it can legally be denied because the public opposes it. Overlays cannot be done that way. If they meet the qualifications,
Yeah.
you have to grant it.
Yeah.
So it's important how it's
It's just, does it check the box?
correct.
Yeah.
And that, you know, we're here to represent the people. I'm kind of commission side, so that's really important to us. To make sure we have the option to make sure their voices are heard.
And that's why I was asking what the thought process is with everybody here. Is this something that you really, should we? So when BZA does it, you know, a lot of times, and county commission may do this, BZA comes in, somebody says, hey, I want a special exception to do this. and BZA hears it, and of course, they hear all what goes along with it, and they may set some parameters around that. But it's not a zoning action. So literally, it could be the parameter that you're no longer doing it 2 years from now, it goes away. Where otherwise, 3 years from now, somebody calls me, they're interested in the property, they say, what's it zoned? I'm gonna say, well, it's a community facilities zoning. And you know, what's allowed in that zoning? Well, we go back into those allowed uses. It kinda zones that property as such. Zoning sticks with properties, like the PUDs. You know, we still have properties that are zoned R1 PUD or A2 PUD. We don't even have PUDs anymore. So that was my thought about being less of a, not an overlay, because we know we don't want to do overlay, but let's just put them in a proper zone and work from there. That was just my thought process with that.
And when someone comes to apply for a rezone, let's say someone's going from R2 to a community facility zoning for private recreational facility. The application should say private recreational facility, so that's the only thing that can be done in that certain zoning situation.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah.
I think you're better off if you can put things in a specific zone that you weren't gonna allow, as opposed to trying to overlay it or special exception it, or whatever, however you wanna call it, so.
Yeah, we just wanna make it stay, and like you said, you are right, because you can put that caveat on it. We have a property now that has been zoned with a specific use, and it's kinda being held like that. And I'm just talking, some of the concerns you have with that is 10 years down the road, if people remember when they're looking at zoning and they click on that, and they go, hey, that's mapped, it's C2, but nobody realizes to go back. Let's say Commissioner Shaver is no longer able to remember this to remind us of it. I'm not hounding on you. I just want to make sure that it's something that anybody in the office recognizes what it is, rather than remembering when we did that 10 years ago, we had this document that went along with it, if we could find it, that said what you could do. That's just.
It's kinda like that Mississippi bed and breakfast up there, that they're advertising as a commercial zone, and it's not.
That is correct.
It's a
You
special
received a
exception.
special exception to operate that, and the BZA could have, you know, put that caveat on there. You can operate that here in this location, but it's you only. And at this point, anybody else calls, would be saying, no, it's not approved for that. It's just thoughts.
So do you see, as these lots come in to the planning commission or county commission, when the commission reapproves these new zoning regs, do we just clean it up each application? Which means that each rezone would go to the county commission and get approved from there from the 3 readings? Or since we're doing such a significant change in zoning, do we come up with a new practice to try to streamline some of those zonings to clean it up? Because otherwise, you're gonna have everybody that's gonna be on a 3-month cycle, is that correct?
We don't have 3 readings. It just goes from you straight to us.
Okay, so you don't have to hear it 3 times?
No, it
Okay.
just has to come to our workshop, and then we vote 2 weeks later. And that's why we moved y'all's meetings. Thankfully, y'all agreed to where we can expedite things quicker for whatever has to come to us from you guys.
Yeah, so if this was in effect, all these properties, there's a lot of them that become non-conforming, properties, and they're basically grandfathered in. Anything they wanna do from there forward comes under the new reg. That's the best way to handle it. Talk to somebody with ETAT, he said that's the correct way to handle it. You don't wanna, because otherwise you gotta notify everybody.
Right.
So that's the way it be handled. So that brings us to the second thought. So when we create these new zoning, they give special exceptions, that's easy to move. We're no longer gonna allow that in that zoning district, unless you create a new district, right? But that comes down to the main thing is we're creating new zoning districts. One thing we've gotta think through is, where are you gonna allow them? Because the first thing that's gonna happen is we're gonna have some acreages that are 4 acres in an A2 or an A1. We'll say an A1 will go extreme. They wanna divide it up to give it to their child, you can't do it. Well, there's no use in creating new zoning if we don't have a place that we wanna see it occur, and places that it does not need to occur.
Can they
Otherwise,
not,
you just
can they
have
not ask,
randomness.
can they not just come and ask for a rezone?
Well, they would request a rezone to A1, right, which would allow them to do this, but I guess my thought process is, how do you keep it from being random? You need to have a thought process of where you want that to occur, or what you're gonna have is every time somebody submits a plat to fill, or they call down to the office, ask, we'll say you can't do it, what I gotta do? You get a rezoning, so they're just going through a process of rezoning, and it's going back to what we already had. And I've not checked our allowable uses, it could go from what we already had with maybe just a few less uses in the zone. That's the biggest thought process, so you got a new R2, possibly this special use, or this other overlay type zoning, but mainly the A1 and the A2 that you really need to think about, where do we do this? Because we need to know that in order to give guidance and be able to direct people how to handle that.
That's gonna be difficult to define, is it not? Maybe we settle on 321 quarter, that's okay, and then, but you get off of 321 a mile, and no, it's not okay, or?
Right, I mean, so typically when you look at a lot of things, so there's a section here and it's changed, it says intense use of sewers, no sewers. A lot of times we've had, some of these used to say, I've got some notes down here, used to say public water or private water. And so it could be that, again, and utilities are everywhere, that's the other unique thing about Loudon County. You got sewers in places that you wouldn't think. But some of these larger tracts, you probably don't have a problem on a 2.5 acre minimum tract when you're talking about well water and septic. That's pretty easy to swallow. But when you get into the A, it's almost like where you still can't really require sewer connection for an A. I mean, for 1 acre tract, you say you need to have public water minimum, but still yet there's a lot of places with public water. So it's a matter of defining, like you said, where your A, what that transition is. I thought I wrote up, and I may have.
Is there a benefit in A1 to have 5 acre tracts versus 10?
That's what we said down here, that I discussed. I like it.
So every zoning has a
A1 would be 5,
description
A2 would be 2.5.
of
and
its-
A3 would be 1.
That's what we said down
what
here.
it is,
Either one.
basically. And looking at the A1, the best description I could find, this come off of another zoning, it's talking about basically where you're transitioning from development to agricultural district is comprised generally of farming areas where some development of single-family residential is occurring. So what we do is this district is designed to encourage a compatible relationship between the agricultural and residential subdivisions in the area, and you regulate those low-density developments. So that would basically be the heading of this A3. And that's just a matter of where we're gonna allow the A3. And like you said, that's the hardest part, but as soon as this passes, you're gonna see a lot of requests.
So
Yeah,
you're saying
because
that
most
could
landowners,
easily-
if they've got a house on their property that they wanna
in order to get
sell,
A3,
they don't wanna give up 5 acres with that house,
Correct.
or
Yeah.
2.5 acres
They'd
for
be
that
giving up
matter.
2.5 if they had at least 5 acres and to subdivide. That's the biggest challenge, I think, of the whole.
And what are your parameters gonna be to let them do an A3 to do a 1 acre lot?
Correct. And that's where we're looking for some feedback.
Well, you know these farmers, they don't wanna give up a lot of property.
No.
I believe there's areas of the county, obviously, that larger tracts are better suitable. Especially whether or not, there's still areas in the county that are rural, should be kept rural. It's kinda hard to
Well,
put
you
back
got-
in
you
the
have to
budget,
look
you
at
know,
the
once we vote on
roads.
this.
The roads, what infrastructure's there,
Sure.
there's,
Well, if you take into consideration even Hackney Chapel, we had these lots that were created years ago that were 1 acre tracts, and they were created one at a time, and if, for instance, that property was zoned A2 and they were looking at rezoning to start creating 1 acre tracts, and a person would have known it, we've got a substandard road in that area that it might have been better suited at this time to elect it, with a 2.5 acre tract. And you wouldn't have things like that occur.
And I think that's one of those that drives right into what's brought this to the point, is trying to address the substandard roads. In fact, next Monday night, I'll have it on the agenda again to address development attaching to substandard roads. But if you have a substandard road, if you want to allow 10 homes or 3 homes, that can be taken into consideration when considering a rezone, whether or not you're gonna allow it to be a 1 acre, 2.5 acre, or a 5 acre, which I prefer, but 1, 2.5, or 5. Well, what's the community look like? Is the road little bitty? Is it not suitable for that? Well, no, we wouldn't rezone it to allow you to have 1 acre lots, or for sure, half acre lots, that sort of thing. So that would give you, right now, there's nowhere in the middle. It's 1 acre and that's all we got.
So say somebody came and wanted to, rezone to A3. Would they have to rezone their whole property to A3, or just the portion that they wanted to subdivide off?
Just the portion they want to subdivide off.
That could be the way they do it. Of course, I would imagine anybody that want to rezone would probably, in this case, probably want to do the whole.
Well, not necessarily,
Well, no,
if
if
they were
somebody
just
had-
wanting to
yeah,
sell
right.
one little piece of property off of their, you know,
Yeah.
their farm where a house was at, or somebody was wanting to buy something, you know, rather than rezone the whole property, rezone what they're wanting to divide off.
That's probably,
That might,
probably considered spot zoning, could possibly occur. And I'm just using that scenario, that's
Yeah.
probably not the reason to rezone that property.
Right, cause you'd have,
A3.
like if you had a 5 or, they wanted to keep 5 or 10 acres to themselves and then the rest of it's A3, then it'd be a reason to deny or force them to go, the whole thing.
And of course, if
Well,
they
then
get
you're
A3,
defeating the
then that
purpose.
opens
you're
up.
defeating the whole purpose if you do that.
Yeah, you do, and that opens up for everybody in that area to continue that. That's why I think you're looking at some parameters that we could use
Yeah.
to say, you know, this is suitable for or not. And just not sure, just look for thoughts on those parameters.
Well, I think like Dan said, road, substandard or suitable road. I think utilities is another. I think water is important.
I think you should have, public water, period.
Yeah.
I think that's a given.
That might be, that's probably a really good way for A3, is to, mandate public water.
And I think that you'd have to talk about the surrounding properties some. I mean, if you're sitting there in the middle of a 75 lot subdivision, then, maybe you make amends to that. But if you're out where there's just 100 acre farms, then maybe you don't.
Right, and we have a lot of that. Of course, we're gonna have some of that mixed in, small lot stuff, but there are larger tracts in in every district, there's some, but there's more probably in the third, fourth, of course, partially the fifth, but that. I think
Probably
that'd
the
be taken
first
into
and the fourth is your
consideration.
biggest properties.
And you could look at roads as a factor. We may or may not cover it all with that.
Well, I mean, we look at the roads with any subdivision request, or,
We do with, 5 lots or more
Uh-huh.
of a subdivision, they're required 18-foot wide paved road. That would knock some of these out. I don't know that it catches everywhere that you may not want this to occur, though, for lack of better words, where you wanna keep it. The one other zoning district, don't know what it'd be called. Again, this is all just being worked on, trying to come up with something to designate and identify would be a special use district. This is spot zoning, but I don't know, I think you have spot zoning when you create a new zoning district, period. The main thing is designate where you want it, but a special use district, that's where things like landfills, rock quarries, utility facilities, maybe even cell towers would be located. Again, that, being a zoning change requires county commission approval. Currently, those type of uses, except for cell towers, are done by special exception. If we were to do that. The one thing with a cell tower is you have a tower overlay district. And so I'm not creating a new zone, I have a underlying zone that allows me to have a house or a use of the property compliant with zoning. The overlay just allows me to have a tower. But by creating these zones, most of them aren't a big deal. I guess cell tower is the only one that we would want to have an additional use. You know, most people aren't gonna have, some farms, they have a farmland and they have a rock quarry on that farm. It's a matter of identifying what additional uses, what uses you're gonna allow in these zones as we create them also. Most of these, for the A1 and the A3 and the R2, it's spelled out. The only other ones would be like these other districts where we have cell towers, utility facilities, things of that nature. It's either that or you designate, if you create a special use district, it would be a rezoning action, but you could designate also the underlying zoning that you would allow that in. That might be a possible way of handling. Okay, you're gonna come for us for a special use. Other jurisdictions call it a special use permit that went through the BZA, but this is a rezoning, so it will go through planning and county commission, but you say, okay, for a special use permit, I wanna do a rock quarry. Well, the only underlying zoning that's allowed into is gonna be an A1 or an A2 or something of that nature. You could designate it under each section what it's for and where you could allow that, which is easy enough to do. We would also need to change our subregs for shared driveways. That's just a note for me, but for what it's worth, our shared driveway standard right now allows up to 4 2-acre minimum lots. So if we did fix this, we'd have to just note the A1 and A2, you'd have a minimum of 2.5-acre parcels.
Is there a minimum footage that's on that if it goes up to the 4 lots of how much road frontage it has to have? It falls down to 50?
So for a shared driveway development, it actually is only 25 feet connected to a county road. Then you construct the road for the standards in that and allows you to create those 4 lots off of it.
On shared driveways, is there a possibility of not going with the 25, going to a wider road frontage to accommodate the public utilities that a lot of times has to be stacked on one edge of the driveway? And that's only for shared driveways of 2 or more lots. You know, if it's a single driveway, you don't necessarily have it. But on some flag lots, at 25 feet with the asphalt driveway, it gets pretty busy.
So for the shared driveway section, that we can fix that. We can make it a wider connection for utilities and such. What you're facing, and I may be wrong, but what you're facing is where they actually subdivide in a flag lot situation. And they aren't subdividing by the shared driveway standard. The shared driveway standard allows you to create this road and actually come off of that road to create your lots rather than having a county road frontage or building a 50-foot wide right of way with a county standard road. We could even increase those if it was necessary though.
I've seen some cases that's starting to get, Hines Valley Road was the biggest one. Multiple flag lots, 1 shared driveway.
Yeah.
And you're having to put 10 services in that 25 feet.
What about the one up on Lakeview that Mark White's doing? How's that one fit into this discussion?
That one has a roadway, put the pipelines down, not so much of an impact. However, it's a shared easement that a lot of people are coming out to one cluster. The biggest one that I've noticed, it was a little bit of a mess, was the family on Hines Valley.
So those 2 subdivisions, they were subdivided off of not having to put any infrastructure in. They subdivided back to the county road, and he just put an ingress, egress, access to the properties.
So in the shared driveways, you run individual services back to each house?
What we're seeing is most shared driveways, you have to set all the meters together. And there's not enough with the driveway and the room for 10 or 12, but however many houses that are there. There's not enough room for the transform pad, everything. And it's kind of got to be a mess, really a mess.
Do you recall how the utilities do, Morton Lane.
Hmm.
Is there public water
There is,
out there?
that's part of the old Martell system.
Okay, so that guy did an actual shared driveway subdivision. Do you recall whether he pulled the services to the road or if he run them out his shared driveway?
They pulled those to the road. The last one that, there's a shared driveway for the Mark White, what's it called, Creek Side or Creek Harbor or something?
Stones,
But he put the utilities there, but there was enough room. So when we rewrite that, maybe we may want to incorporate on certain
and that's what I'm
cases.
saying. So the one on Morton Lane is the only one out of the three that's been discussed that's an actual shared driveway. They've been constructed by the shared driveway standards. All the other lots are 5 acres or greater that you have no regulation over and they put them in. And or even if they did smaller lots that were flag lotted, then they just put in a common access. That, they're not doing that off our shared driveway standard. So the planning commission hadn't had anything as far as approval or denial of that. So we've got our cheat sheets, we've got our red lines. Looking for some thoughts and opinions.
We're asking the East Tennessee Development District to help Jim write us an ordinance form, so he doesn't have to spend his time doing that.
one of the things that brought this up recently, just all the stuff going on, but when did we adopt zoning, 71?
It was adopted 71, yes.
And it's not been changed since 71. And at least some areas of the county, especially up on our end, is where so much stuff's going on. And to try to make everything fit into those 2 or 3 little zones that we had, there was just so many things packed into it. To expand our zoning out gives a lot more options for the property owners and the planning commission and the county commission, everybody else, to help address all the different things that's coming in. So I'd say after 50 years, it's probably time for a little bit of an upgrade.
Does anybody want these sections that I've highlighted that show the changes, what's being pulled out? Is it necessary? I mean, you can go online and see what was in there and what's being pulled out of each section. I know it's something the county commission wants to move on, so I don't want to leave it lying.
Can you email us?
Can you email that to us
I can sure try.
with
Yeah.
the highlighted stuff on it?
Yeah, I pulled that out, it's on my disc, so I'll try to get y'all a copy of that. I know they're wanting to move forward, and this kinda gives you a gist of what happens, what occurs, so you can kinda look at it and get some thought and feedback.
So if we approve this or recommend moving forward, then we would get a review of the rewritten sections once the.
Yeah, just whatever you decide, what we'll do is we'll end up taking and correcting it, putting it in resolution form, hopefully with the help of ETAB, whatever it is, and, bring it back to y'all for a vote. I just think it's crucial to look at it, try to figure out where, as we look at these, where are we gonna allow this to occur, where is this gonna occur, what's this gonna do in effect? And thought process on how to handle it, so we can get it written up in resolution form and move forward.
When do you hope to have it? Next month?
I don't know when we're gonna be started. I know commission, the first opportunity they could actually vote on it would be August.
We had workshop it in July and then vote in August. Is
The problem with it, and the only issue with that is you don't really have, y'all just, we'd write up a resolution, bring it back to you. It doesn't give you a whole lot more time to think or process anything with our opinion. Or, if y'all are good with it as it is, this way we'll move forward. But the only other opportunity for a workshop is to have a special call workshop to discuss it. Or do it at our next call meeting, and I will do whatever y'all want.
We could workshop it before your next meeting.
We could have a special call workshop prior to our next planning commission meeting, yes. I'll be out of town the last week of June.
But East Tennessee Development District won't have time to write these up by then, will it?
Do you want them to write it up
We
before?
probably
they
may
vote?
need to have it written up afterwards, but it would be good if we could have a meeting with them to have some discussion, to get everything organized anyhow.
Jim is saying, have them construct the ordinance after you vote on all the details.
I think.
I'd like to see it in true form.
True form?
Yeah, I mean,
So,
it's called, I mean,
well,
a draft form of it, but I'd
Okay,
like
I
to
mean,
see
we can
it that
draft
way.
form it, that's fine, if we can get together, we can draft form it and bring it in.
Well, I think they're gonna have comments is my fear.
I'm
I
looking
think
for
if we,
comments.
I think if we sit down and say, yeah, let's do it like this, then they're gonna come back and say, no, you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that, or we don't need to do that, or.
Okay,
So there are gonna be changes again, so I think we're better off to let them, use their expertise to help us along.
okay. I would agree with that. So, don't know when we're gonna work on that, our next meeting is July the 13th.
I'll call them again tomorrow and see if they can start tomorrow.
Why don't we just do a workshop early like we did tonight? Is that gonna be time enough?
It could be, and if you, so if we did that, we'd do a workshop the 13th. If you liked what was presented, then we can move forward to commission. I don't know that, that law, that y'all necessarily have to vote to approve or deny it. It just goes back to commission. If there was things that needed to be adjusted or amended by your all's thoughts, I'd make those, we could make those corrections. But if July 13th workshop works, that's what we'll do.
July 11th.
11th?
Yeah. it's 11.
13th, that's close.
We'll give you an email.
Yeah, we know. We'll be
It's
here.
the second Tuesday, if you will.
Yeah, there you go.
We will hope to have something for y'all to review by then and send out earlier if we get it. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Rewrite my list stuff.
No joke. Could you imagine go through the whole planning board?
Big trip plan.
August.
It's a recode in about 18 years. Of course, that's gonna-
Oh, you were gone last month. Me, Ocean City, New Jersey. If I get there, I'll
Do the
buy
guys
a
get strict there?
95
Say, don't go up 90. Yeah.
Steve wants to drive, he don't
Yeah, my
fly.
friend,
Just tell them when, or just tell, send me a text.
I think they might have come back.
He'll say we should have flew.
My buddy's built it, and he's just sending guys over like a 3 times. That's why it takes us. I went up there this morning, looked at it,
We
I've
lived
been around there.
in City Beach, and I
No, but he's on his way over right now.
drove down there Thursday, going back to 6 Wednesday.
Well, anyways, it's about a half hour later, I come by. It was, Kennedy just grabbed it.
Yeah, I was, I took
Okay,
it.
you don't make it grab that ditch.
I wore the same, I wore the same, all 5.
We actually just.
We have them on about an hour.
But that takes longer though.
Yeah.
Short, because that dirt is settlement, sewer around swag. And we usually make a trace bar or something, in case we ever need to locate or something.
Yeah, when I left, it was all pipe and tracer wire in there, gravel, gravel, so I guess he's probably coming back tomorrow, I guess. You know how contractors are, they.
Or it could be
last
single
minute,
family house, it could be single family.
Try to throw something together.
But anymore, there's coming up, I don't see how some of them do that.
I don't know. He never told me
Another
straight.
multifamily development, where everything's built
What's
on
it
one
gonna be?
A planned unit development is to be for properties where they might you have multiple uses, you might have condos, you might have single family unit with commercial portions, which is what that subdivision is originally developed.
Chad, I got a question for you. So, once, if it is rezoned, once y'all get a site plan, does a sign go up for that?
Not a site plan, though. So if it were
How do
rezoned,
all these folks know that you got a site plan that will come to this meeting? Because that's when they're gonna want to.
Hey, Mr. Brooks.
Well, for a subdivision plat, if that's what they submit, if I wouldn't do it. We're not gonna know.
Do you vote?
We don't.
I had questions, I had to go back and look.
I know it's my job to do it. But we kinda got our hands tied here, cause I mean, a lot of these folks I believe are concerned about the road alignment out there.
You know, they're recording that camera.
The traffic, okay, we've had recently, I can't remember if that's how Valley Shore is in the cities broke down. I think it is. So we won't hear it anyhow. So see, I just got the cow and we're city, so probably better.
You'll never see anything from the city ever, ever.
I'm hoping it shows up here a little bit. We would have been his ear. Well, this is not.
Yeah, that's in the city's road plan, but for what it's worth.
I didn't think so, I just wanted, but that's the issue. These folks are concerned about what happens out there, how does it impact that road? He'll come to one of these meetings to approve, none of us know even the place. There's two subdivisions out there, Henry's Land and what the other one is, that hasn't, those developments aren't, what, 5 years old? And I don't think anybody knows really do like
And then after
I understand that, but it's no way to, you know, wait.
I stayed up to 12 o'clock, I had to get up early. I don't know, I'm in Knoxville, 10:15, I was straight on No, Beam was still pitching. Is he on fire? They
Yeah, I've heard parts of
We had to play them first game.
I didn't know they pulled that one off, did you? The guy across the room, Frank? Well, that's not even being heard. Yeah, what you just said, all these people, that's what they're here for. I don't know. Originally, the request was, I think, remove the cloud and make it all one. We got a little serious to it, it's all there in C2, just make it all. So apparently now they're asking us to take it all and move it to right. That's what I was doing. That'll down the ground. roads, streets, we're approving acceptance of roads tonight.
That's one thing I say about it.
But that's been removed. I think that's what they're doing. I think Jim's catching on. He didn't know until this last day or two. He said he contacted Satterville. Satterville's in Florida. No. Carolina. The beach somewhere. I don't even know where. What's Todd gonna do about that big development on 10th Avenue? If I was a city councilman, I'd do something about that.
I didn't know about it.
I don't think it'll ever That's all on Facebook, that's all I know.
There's some money.
She's been there 25 years, all three of her kids have graduated. She said she's been praying about it, she was just ready for another move, so offered her to come up and took it. That's her statement. Well, you know there's money.
What's the girl's name?
Jenny Barker?
Barker says something, some basketball coach. He's overseeing some.
I put on this gal, so she was playing for two. I had son.
Well, her daddy was a bartender. She was a sexton. And they won the national championship. She bought her in the slave. She told her they won the national championship. That's how fast I was assistant. Because they said,
I don't fuzz is worse. That looks like a I would have watched him dig on today. Indian, it's probably Indian artifact.
Oh, that'll stop that movie.
Well, it was in a barn.
I never found a can.
Some people, did you dump out a can? It was a jawbone.
Yeah, I thought it was a deer.
What else was in it? Was you who bought the stuff? You were the one that bought it? I cannot believe you were the one that bought the stuff.
They called me today.
Once they've been up there all day, good people come and move the rest of the shed out because they tore it down. So they found the other half of the jawbone. With what else? Seashells. This is going to be somebody done an Indian grave back in history sometime. They used to be pretty common.
Is it right there across from the church?
Yeah.
Well, church is sort of.
Yeah. It's Walker's old place, yeah.
There's an old woman lives there, it's got all that. And there's two girls, I think one of them are. Kathy said they had a sale. Then one Saturday, at a door when they mentioned.
It's 5:30, so let's call the Loudon County Regional Planning Commission to order. Would you stand with me, please, and pledge allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Ron Wright.
Here.
Jim Brooks.
Here.
Todd Kennedy.
Here.
Pam Hughes. Here. John Napier.
Here.
Leon Shields.
Here.
Mike Waller.
Here.
Jimmy Williams. Keith Buckles.
Here.
Do I hear an approval of the minutes from the May 9 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
I got a move and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Planned agenda items. A, rezoning request from M1 to R1, applicant Rosemary Quillen, property owner Rachel Provost, located 6,000 Riverview Road, tax map 026, parcel 086.00, M1 General Industrial District, R1 Suburban Residential District, District 5, approximately 41 4/10 acres. So, Ms. Quillen or Ms. Provost here?
Ms. Quillen's out, but I think she has a rep here.
Yes.
You wanna address this?
Yeah, sure. Do I need to go up there? Never done
Yeah,
this.
if you would. Identify yourself and
Yeah,
tell
I
us
got
what
it.
you got.
Okay. My name is Kipper Quillen, and I'm here tonight to represent Rosemary Quillen, Realty Hines Executives, and Rachel Davis, Provost, in regards to the parcel located at 6,000 Riverview Road, Lenore City. It is currently zoned N1. We wish to have it rezoned to R1 residential. The property just went under contract, and the potential buyers are desiring to build a house. This rezone has already been approved by the Lenore City Planning Commission. The surrounding properties are zoned R1, and we're asking to be rezoned to R1.
Mr. Chairman, this kind of fits the layout of what this should have originally been designed instead of industrial. It has passed the city, and their final step is to come here, so I'll make a motion to approve.
And then you just wanting to build one house?
That's what they, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they-
I second the
I've got a move and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Thank you for your time.
B, rezoning request from A2 to C2, applicant property owner Benji Schuler, located 8670 Highway 321 South, tax map 027, parcel 111.00, A2 Rural Residential District, District 3, approximately 1.17 acres. Mr. Schuler?
Yes, sir. Hi, Benji Schuler, looking at the property there on Highway 321 to go from agricultural to C2, looking to do some type of building for my office, construction office, possibly like a office warehouse type.
Questions from the board?
This property's on the right-hand side when you cross the, Telco water. There's just a few tracks on that side of the road, if you look at it, fairly small. There's C2 in that area also. It's probably more suitable C2 than any type of residential.
Where's it
at this
at?
point.
He's right next to that church.
It's right
It's
there on the
inside
side of the church. Okay,
It is.
I've seen the sign. I know where it's
Yep,
at.
yeah, that's where it is. So it's
Okay.
probably more suitable as C2 than a ag or residential type zoning.
I'll
So I
make a
think it's
motion
suitable.
to approve.
Lenore City heard this also. I'm not sure what they're.
I got a move, do I have a second?
Second.
I got a move and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So moved. C, rezoning request from R1 to C2, applicant Chris Rogers, property owner Gerald Cole, located Lee Highway, tax map 033K, parcel 1.00 through 6.00, R1 Suburban Residential District, C2 General Commercial District, District 1. This was put off from last month, wasn't it, Jim?
It was, yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Rogers or Mr. Cole, are they here? Any representation?
They were notified. I did call.
They were
Ms.
here.
Hartsfield notified them and let them know that this date would be the meeting also.
They've started clearing, they've already cleared the land, haven't they?
Yeah, they started clearing it, but the day they'd come in for request, the gentleman that applied said they're just trying to look, see what they had up there. So, yeah, I would say it is a fairly small tract. Didn't realize it was quite that small. It was heard through Loudon City, which, you know, they made a recommendation to approve. There's some C2 across the road from it, and the city just down the road.
So it's the,
But
go ahead, I'm sorry.
But they're not here, and again, the only other thing you see is that 1.7 acres, I think they were looking to do storage on it.
Are they doing the 1.01 parcel plus the 6 behind it?
It's the
Yes.
6 behind it, and I think those parcels there used to be part of Port Madison Estates, or are a part of Port Madison Estates, and you can see how they're reconfigured, and that's probably when that large section was taken out. The state had ownership and has now given it back to this current owner. They're looking to combine all that though to do this development.
So they would have to come up with a plat, site plan and all that stuff.
They would, yes, sir. If approved, yes.
But they're asking for parcels 1 through 6 now.
Yeah, they want them all rezoned to this C2.
with storage buildings being across the street, do you have any opposition to doing it?
I don't really have opposition. It's a fairly small tract. The city was okay with it.
Is anybody here in opposition?
You got a recommendation on it, Jim?
I don't see the problem with the C2 zoning. You know, I guess it'll be on them to submit a site plan to show how many storage facilities they can put on the property, but the city supported it. It's in their growth boundaries, so I don't have an issue with it.
Is there any feedback from the commissioner in that area? I mean,
I've talked to Chase Randolph about it and he was fine with it. But our problem is they're not here.
Yeah,
That's my problem.
Yeah.
Right.
And you wanna make a motion to postpone it to July?
I'm not, I can't keep all these laws down. It may be that we're required to take some form of action within a period of time. I would have to read that period of time. I don't know. If it's
I think it
60
says we have
days.
to either vote or deny. Can't
And
tell you
and
what
I
it
may be right? You got 60 days, I think, usually take action.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay. D, road acceptance request, Stone Harbor subdivision, property owner Mark White, located 181 Stone Harbor Boulevard, tax map 021, parcel 65.02, R1 PUD Suburban Residential District, District 6. White.
Thank you. We've got 1,624 feet of Stone Harbor Boulevard that we cap coated, and 1,649 feet of Westport Drive, 335 feet of Mooring Circle, and 51 feet of Shadow Bay, and 64 feet of Eastport Drive. It's like a total of 3,723 feet. The roads, most of those roads have been in, Unit 3 been in for about 4 years. I think 3 years we cap coated it also at the same time. So.
They were going from a private road to a public road.
No, public road all along. I just never had to put the cap coat on it. I've kept a letter of credit out with the county on all those sections for however long. I just need to get my letter of credits removed.
Mr. Pickle, okay?
Billy's okay with the acceptance, yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a move and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It is approved. E has been omitted, and County Commission action on Planning Commission recommendations. We got two.
I apologize, I don't recall what we took to county commission in their last meeting, but they followed our recommendations. I think it was rezoning on Hotchkiss Valley, which they upheld, and, one other.
Mr. Chairman, if I could I add agenda item number F by motion for the vote on the preliminary plat change?
Yes. Now, what are we voting on?
Removal of this section.
Oh, removal of
that section of the final plat section.
So my motion would read to follow with the workshop earlier to remove the narrative plat of the final plat, the highlighted area that Mr. Jenkins has presented to us, to make it a current going forward from this date. All plans previously and currently approved shall be held to the accountability of the phasing in which it was on the preliminary plats, and allow no other phasing to occur unless it's approved on the preliminary plat phase by the codes office or the commission.
I'll second that.
We have a move and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor of making that change, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. So be it. Codes Department, Jim.
Nothing to add. Nothing to add.
Nothing to add. Any comments from the public before we? Yes.
What was this about Hotchkiss Valley Road? Was that?
That was defeated.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it's still agricultural
Yes. Yeah.
I was at both the meetings.
Anything else from the public? Update from the planning department?
Nothing new to add.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Moving second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. You got your stuff?
Hang in there.
Me too.
Yeah, my,
Hey, pal.
How you doing?
It's fine, sir.
Got my policy, Daisy's birthday.
Yeah, I saw him at lunch today.
Okay.
We went out to Shoney's. Me and Shane took him out to Shoney's. You gonna buy there, buy his dinner?
I'm gonna go by there and cook him supper.
You'll cook him a can of soup.
Sounds about right. Yeah, I was unaware of,
Yeah, you tell us your
How are you?
yeah.
All right.
Has,
No, I ain't
service
been in
water,
there.
friends from service to sewer, electric service,
I know all the above now. I always wondered what they little house was down.
I went across the river right here, CB stops.
When I found out what the treatment was.
For Taz over on 411. They're right there at 411 Bridge, there at the river. And, I don't know where Springfield's wastewater plant.
How about the school?
Yeah. Oh, do it? Where's all that sewer line? Oh, yeah. I told you wrong. Don't go to Springfield, it goes fast. It's all fast.
Wind River and everything. Somehow it winds up.
Goes across the river to Loudon.
Yeah. Imagine that.
So they did warn us originally, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, around the river, Telephone Village. Telephone Village wanted to buy water from us, they had to allow utilities. I think it was like about 5 or 6 million dollar price tag.
Get out on the lake.
We're still right there coming from where the families connect, that's where Teleco POA's water system stops at the mountain. So there's no
I don't know here at the building.
there's no fountain, there's no water from the fountain back to the town.
Pardon me just a minute, but we got to start this on the meeting.
Didn't know you was gonna have another meeting. Have a great one.
Call the Loudon County Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Need a roll call.
Leon Shields.
Here.
Ron Bright.
Here.
Jim Brooks.
Here.
John Napier. Mike Waller.
Everybody read the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. If you're gonna speak tonight on any subject here, stand up and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to affirm that the testimony you may give in the causes now pending before this commission will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you. Planned agenda items, variance request to build an accessory building in the front side yard, applicant Tony Hitson, property owner Penny Brown, located 151 Oak Street, tax map 070, parcel 069.00, R1 Suburban Residential District, District 3, approximately 0.77 acres. One of you to go up here and speak on it. It's the same old stuff. They shouldn't even be here.
I understand. This is in the city of Greenback.
Yeah. You're gonna build a garage in the corner and he's got a triangle lot.
Yeah, and the septic's to the left of the house and the field line's in the back. So that's relatively the only place we have to do it.
That's right.
Move to approve for Archie.
Got a motion?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
You're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Variance request to set business sign 5 feet from property line. Applicant property owner Gary Patel located 18555 Highway 72, tax map 049, parcel 129.00C1, general commercial district, District 1, approximately 2 acres.
I'm representing Mr. Gary Patel. He's here if you need to talk.
I got a question before we start. Come on up
Okay.
here.
Yes, sir.
Did we not do this about 2 or 3 years ago?
That's my next question.
They've got some
We've done
permission
it 2
for
or
a
3 years ago for the
Yeah,
gas
there's
sign.
permission for a sign,
Oh, I didn't know.
on a property, but I can't recall. what
That's
it was
over at
for.
72 Market.
It is, yes,
We
sir.
done it 2 or 3 years ago.
I believe it was back up when Laura was here. I don't know if there was a different
No,
owner
it-
from that time.
I think it's after she left.
I
It's
think
already
it
approved.
was- I think it was after she left.
I was here.
You were here?
Yeah, I'm pretty
Approved to
sure.
what setback then? Setback from the property line?
It was
I
a
don't
larger,
recall what the
it was a
request-
larger sign if I remember.
They was
correctly.
moving their gas sign.
But they never did anything.
They hadn't done
They've
anything.
not done anything out there. I don't recall what the request is for, to be honest with
Was it today or then? I don't know.
you. Back then, discussing in the old variances, they have a sign that's back close
Oh,
to the
it's-
building.
Yeah. It's way
They,
back.
the
But you didn't
request
hear-
at that time, you know, they've got that gas sign way off the road back there.
Right.
They was wanting to move it up closer to the road,
Correct.
what the variance was for.
So was, I don't know, was that approved or not? or-
Yeah, it was approved.
It was approved, I don't recall to what extent. but-
Yeah, just what setback from the property line?
I don't know about that now.
Because.
Because
I think
I
it's a
know, I do
state-
know they never have moved it.
If I remember
No, we
right,
have
the
not.
state property line is way back off the asphalt.
It is, yes.
And they had asked permission to do that, and I think it was a larger sign.
It may be.
So you just want to move the sign 5 feet?
From the
Oh.
yes, sir. And then we can build it in such a manner with leg bolts, if it needs to be moved if the road gets wider, it's unbolted and move it back to whatever we need to.
And like Leon said, the property line is way back, ain't it, Leon?
Well, the property line, do you all have that map?
We got the sketch.
It shows it 60 feet back from the center line of the road.
The property line is about 60 feet from the center of the road. And I believe you have, yeah, so,
So basically, you're not wanting to move it up maybe 4
Yes,
or
move-
5 foot from where the existing sign's at, towards
well,
the
the
property.
sister sign's way back there.
No, this sign right here's not.
Well, that's a wooden sign down
I
here.
know it, but that's a sign.
Pardon?
That's a sign.
Yeah, I know, so we need to move that out of the way.
But you're just going up from it, probably. Well, no, you're actually moving it back.
I don't think his picture's really to scale. He's just giving an idea of.
But if you're going in the vicinity of that right there,
I think if I remember correct too, I think the main conversation that come up last time was worry about the vehicles on the ingress and egress, seeing that oncoming traffic, because that's a little bit of a high-speed area on 72. And I think if I remember correctly, the commission just worried about a possible accident there to make sure that the visibility for the cars entering and exiting the facility could see a good thoroughfare both
We
ways.
can build the sign to have a 10-foot clearance, if that's, clearance from the bottom to the bottom of the sign, which allows for visibility if that's required.
have I got anything?
How big is your sign going to be?
At this point, let's see, at one point, it was gonna be, because I have not,
Does he have to come to you, Jim, for his sign?
It gets a permit through me, yes.
oh, you have that.
So his maximum sign in that zoning would be, not to exceed 20 feet in height and 120 square feet in area per face of sign. That would be the max size of sign he could
So
ever build.
we can go 10 feet to the bottom of
10
the
foot
sign
and 20 feet to the top.
and 10 feet to the top.
Is it gonna be much different than the sign you have up here now? It's in this picture.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna be a
that
big-
is, a wooden sign that I didn't know about, I know it's
I'm talking
there,
about in
but
dimensions, the dimensions of it.
Yeah.
Is it bigger or smaller than this?
oh, then if we can get the setback, it'd be, like you said, it'd be a 20-foot overall height,
Mhm.
and that would be removed from there.
Well, if we've already acted on this, I don't know if we have to take action, do we, Jim?
I do not know what was granted during that variance.
I swear,
I remember hearing something
I
about
thought
this.
we said that he couldn't put it in the center, he had to put it in the corner of the lot. I think now, I wouldn't swear to that.
Yeah, I'm not
I know we had a big discussion
Yeah,
on
we
it.
did.
I think the easiest way to clean it up, if it's okay with you, I'll make a motion to approve pending Jim's review and the compliance to the sign regulation. Y'all are okay with it?
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Can you look that up, Jim?
I will.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise.
So I have to wait.
You have to wait and let Jim look that up and see what it is.
I think the biggest issue last time, just for the record too, on your design, was to make sure there was visibility for those cars coming and going out of that parking lot.
So, we still stay with the 10-foot clearance.
Just work with Jim, he'll work with you on this.
Yeah, call me tomorrow, I'll let you know. I will pull up this, previous.
I knew we'd approved it, but I knew they never had moved the sign.
Yeah, what's that number I can reach you?
865-458-4095. Try not to give that out. No, I'm just kidding.
Variance request to add additions to both sides of existing house. The largest variance will be 18 feet. Applicant property owner Dwayne and Sabrina Harrell. Located at 4071 Rest Camp Road, tax map 036, parcel 065.00, A1 Agricultural Forestry District, approximately 8.5 acres.
Y'all have heard this one too. I'm just gonna bring it up. It's Rest Camp Road. A previous owner, we granted a variance to do a one-side addition to this house. That owner never followed through with it and has sold the property since.
Now, you want to add to both sides.
Yes.
But it was approved last time.
Yes, sir. For one side it was.
What will the setback be when the structures are built? Said 18-foot difference than what? Said that the largest.
Variance would be 18 feet,
Yeah.
so you're in a,
33 foot.
so you're about 33 feet off the road.
That's where it is now.
This is an old house that's been out there, very old.
Yeah,
Oh.
60s.
Yeah, so they're just looking to extend each side of the home.
The house faces the road,
It does, yes.
so it'll be on the left-hand side will be where the variance is, like.
It's gonna be left and right, they're gonna do
Both
both
sides.
sides.
But actually, nothing's being built in front of the existing house, it's just,
Yes,
so the house is kind of in violation of the 33.
it's already in violation, yes.
I'll move to approve the request.
Got a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Anybody else got anything to say? You got anything else, Jim? Got any
No, sir.
announcement?
Yes.
Got a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, likewise, we adjourn. You got something they signed, you
We
Marie?
do. Everything tonight, there's two other items.
All right.
Well, man, what they doing? Very good. Very good. Stay busy. Yeah.
think there's a federal law against exhuming industrial.
I think it's just gonna be haunted. I think
Native
that's gonna be the
American.
worst part.
Those
Hard
two
fact.
are overruled on tonight's.
Those two are approved, no, that's denied.
Yeah, but I never got your signature on it, 'cause